You know that little keychain you carry for safety? Well, depending on where you are, it could actually be an illegal weapon. Yeah, seriously. So let's dive into this surprisingly complicated world and figure out what's legal and what's not here in the US.
And this is a really serious question, because the answer completely depends on what keychain you're carrying and where you happen to be. We're talking about a simple choice that could lead to some pretty hefty fines or even jail time.
And this right here really gets to the heart of it. On one side, you've got the personal alarm. Totally legal everywhere, no problem. But on the other, you have that super popular cat ear keychain. A lot of states see that as brass knuckles, which means it's illegal. Knowing the difference is, well, it's everything.
So to make all this a little easier to digest, we're going to break it down using a simple risk spectrum. Just think of it like a traffic light for your legal safety. We've got green light items, the ones you can carry pretty much worry-free. Then there's the yellow light stuff, where you really need to do your homework on local rules. And finally, the red light category. These are the ones that carry the biggest legal risk.
All right, let's kick things off with the easiest category, the green light. I mean, if you're looking for a totally no-drama, legal everywhere option, this is exactly where you want to be.
What we're talking about here is the personal alarm. Now, this thing doesn't fight for you. Its one job is to make an insane amount of noise. We're talking 120 to 140 decibels. That's like standing near a jet engine. The whole point is to scare off an attacker and get everyone's attention, fast.
And here's what's so wild. Look at how few restrictions there are. Seriously, these personal alarms are basically the only self-defense tool we're going to talk about today that you can take almost anywhere. I'm talking schools, your workplace, even in your carry-on bag on a plane. Zero legal headaches.
Okay, so let's shift gears and move into our yellow light level. And this is where things start to get, well, a lot more complicated. These items are usually legal, but you absolutely have to know the specific rules where you live.
The two big players in this category? First, you've got kubotans, which are basically simple striking tools. And then there's the super common pepper spray keychain. Now, both of these are legal in most places, but man, the devil is really in the details.
So with kubotans, the law generally sees them as just simple tools, but you got to remember two huge things. First, you can't bring them in your carry-on luggage, no way. And second, their legality all comes down to how you use them. If you go overboard, that self-defense tool can turn into an assault charge in a heartbeat. Wow, okay, this slide just perfectly shows what a patchwork of laws we're dealing with for pepper spray. I mean, it's legal in all 50 states, right? But just look at these differences. In New York, you've got a super small size limit, and you have to buy it from a licensed dealer in the state. Then you go to Massachusetts, and you have to buy it from a licensed firearms dealer. It's crazy. The takeaway here is so clear. You have to check your specific state's law before you even think about buying or carrying it. All right, now we're entering the red light category. And listen, this is no joke. Carrying one of these items without being absolutely 100% sure of your local laws could land you with serious criminal charges. This is where you have to be the most careful. First up in this high-risk zone, stun gun keychains. Out of everything we're talking about, these things face probably the most tangled up web of rules and regulations. And to make it worse, those rules are changing all the time. And you can see that huge variation right here. You've got states like Texas that are pretty permissive for anyone over 18. Then you have a place like Illinois where you need a permit, like a special ID card. And then you have Hawaii and Rhode Island where they're just completely banned for civilians, period. But what's the absolute highest risk category of them all? Well, that dubious honor goes to the knuckle-style keychains. Like those cat ear ones you see everywhere. The huge legal danger is that many, many states don't look at that and see a cute keychain. They see brass knuckles. And I know what a lot of you might be thinking, but it's just plastic. Or it only has 2 finger holes, not 4. People naturally assume that has to make it legally different from a big, heavy metal weapon. And folks, this is probably the most critical takeaway of this whole explainer. The laws in a lot of states are written really broadly. They often don't care if it's made of plastic, resin, or metal. They don't specify the number of finger holes. The only thing that matters is its function. Is it a device worn on your hand to make your punch harder? If the answer is yes, it can be legally classified as a prohibited knuckle weapon. End of story.
And look, this is just a partial list of states where these things are either totally illegal or heavily restricted. We're talking California, New York, Illinois, Michigan. Carrying one of these in those states could get you a serious charge. The legal risk, honestly, is just not worth it unless you are absolutely certain of the law where you stand. Okay, so let's say you've figured out your state law. Awesome. But what happens when you need to fly? Well, that's a whole different ballgame. You're dealing with federal rules now, and at the end of the day, the TSA has the final say at that security checkpoint. This chart really lays it out. Do you see the pattern here? Other than the personal alarm, basically nothing is allowed in your carry-on bag. A kubotan or pepper spray? Sure, but it has to be in your checked luggage. But for stun guns and those knuckle keychains, you've got to check with both the airline and TSA, and honestly, a lot of the time, the answer is just going to be no.
So, after all that information, what's the bottom line? What do you really need to remember? Let's put it all together in a final checklist to make sure you're compliant. But before we do that, this is probably the most important slide in the entire presentation. Please remember, this is for general education only. This is not legal advice. Laws can change, and they are different everywhere. If you need actual legal advice, you have to talk to a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction.
Okay, so here's the deal. The responsibility for being legal is yours and yours alone. You've got to verify the specific laws for your state, your county, and your city. You need to check the rules for your school, your workplace, any government buildings. And never forget that legal to own is not the same thing as legal to use. It's all on you to be compliant.
At the end of the day, knowing the law is the very first step to being safe. Now that you have a better handle on the legal landscape, you can make a much smarter and, frankly, safer choice for your own protection. The only question left is, what's the right choice for you?
Thank you for watching, folks. To see more, go to selfdefenseproductsllc.com. Thank you for trusting us with your safety.